Let's go.
Hello, my name is Muhammad HAFSAM bin LAMIN. Today, I will talk about hypothesis testing. What is hypothesis testing? Hypothesis testing is a type of statistical interference that analyzes sample data to derive inferences about population parameter or probability distribution. First, an educated guess is formed regarding the parameter or distribution. This assumption is known as null hypothesis and is symbolized by symbol H0. Then the alternative hypothesis denoted of H1 or HA is defined, which the inverse of what is taught in the null hypothesis. The hypothesis testing technique entails using sample data to evaluate whether H0 can be rejected or not. If the null hypothesis is rejected, the statistical conclusion is that alternative hypothesis HA is correct.
Assalamualaikum and hello everyone. So, hari ini saya akan bentang tentang hypothesis testing. So, the problem is a factory has a machine that dispenses 80 ml of fluid in a bottle. An employee believes the average amount of fluid is not 80 ml. Using 40 ml samples, he measured the average by the machine to be 70 ml with a standard deviation of 2.5. So the first question is, state the null and alternative hypothesis. So in this case, the employee believes that the hypothesis is not 80 ml, so the alternative hypothesis is not equal to 80. It can be left side or right side, it can be positive or negative, so we conduct two-tailed test. Two-tailed test is a method in which the critical area of a distribution is two-sided and test whether a sample is greater than or less than a certain range of value. So, the answer for question 1 is null hypothesis is mu equal to 80 and alternative hypothesis is mu is not equal to 80. So, for question 2, at a 95% confidence level, is there enough evidence to support the idea that the machine is not working properly? So from the information above, we got mean of sample is 78, sample standard deviation is 2.5, and number of observation is 40. So in this question, we must determine whether we use t-test or z-test formula. How to determine the formula is we look at the number of observation. If the sample size less than 30, then we use t-test. If the sample size more than 30, then we use z-test. So in this case, we use z-test formula. By substitute the value above, we got a value of z calculated is approximately equal to negative 5.06. So the rejected shaded area is located in the positive area of two-tailed test graph. So since there's no enough evidence, we should reject the null hypothesis. So we can say then over 95% level of confidence cannot accept the null hypothesis that the average amount of fluid dispensed by the machine is 80 ml. So with 95% confidence level, we believe that the machine is not working properly. That's all from me. Thank you.
I want to ask one question to Idham.
what are the 6 steps of hypothesis testing?
Wow, very marvelous question, Fathullah. So, I will explain the step and determine the hypothesis testing. So, the first step is specify the null hypothesis. Step number 2 is specify the alternative hypothesis. Step number 3, set the significance level. Step number 4, calculate the test statistic and corresponding p-value. Step number 5, drawing a conclusion. That's all. Thank you.
So I will do this problem. So in this problem, we want to construct a 95% confident interval for a true mean red blood cell count of adult. So that's what we want to do. The next step is our plan. In the plan step, I like to include the inference method as well as the condition. So we will say we will use one sample Z interval, and we can use this because the population standard deviation is known. If the following conditions are met, so the first condition is random, and in the problem they tell us it's a sample random of 50 adults, so our random is met. Next, normal. We don't know if the population is normally distributed, but since our sample size is 50, which is greater than or equal to 30, the center limit theorem applies, and it says the sampling distribution is approximately normal. And then finally, independent. Because we are sampling these 50 adults without replacement, it's important that they don't represent more than 10% of the population size. So they are far more than 50 adults, so the 10% condition I meet. Next, to do step. So in the do step, we can start by writing the interval, or how we are going to construct the interval, which is we will take our sample mean and we will add or subtract a margin of error, which is Z star times sigma over the square root of n. So if I fill in all this value, we know we had a sample mean of 4.63 plus or minus. To get Z star, we can do inverse norm 0.975. If we do that, we get our Z star is 1.96 approximately, and we know the population standard deviation is 0.54 and our sample size was 50. Now, rather than actually doing all this math, I'm gonna go on my calculator and push the start button. And if you scroll over to test, one of your option is a Z interval, and if you click the stats button, here you could say, alright, the population standard deviation is 0.5 for our sample, means is 4.63, and our sample size is 50, and we want 95% confident interval, and here our interval right here is 4.4803 and 4.7797. Alright, with that we will go to the conclude step. So we are 95% confident that the true mean red blood cell count of all adults is between 4.4803 and 4.7797. Thank you.
Hello, I am AZMIRA. I have a question to ask, which is, how are confidence intervals used in real life? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Confidence intervals are often used in clinical trial to determine the mean change in blood pressure, heart rate, cholesterol, and other, produced by some new drug or treatment. For example, a doctor may believe that a new drug is able to reduce blood pressure in patient. Thank you.
Hello everyone, I am AZMIRA AHMAD. Today I will discuss about a problem regarding hypothesis testing, where I mainly focus on the p-value method. As you can see on the slide, these are the 5 steps we need to follow to answer a question involving p-value method. So the example I chose is, a researcher claims that the average wind speed in a certain city is 8 miles per hour. A sample of 32 days has an average wind speed of 8.2 miles per hour. The standard deviation of the population is 0.6 miles per hour. At A equals to 0.05, is there enough evidence to reject the claim? Use the p-value method. So the first step is to state the hypothesis and identify the claim. Here we can simply say null hypothesis is mean equals to 8, this is the claim, and alternative hypothesis H1 is mean does not equals to 8. This alternative hypothesis is the one we interested in proving. Next is step 2, compute the test value. We can simply insert every value into this formula and we got the T or Z is equal to 1.89. Next, step 3, we find the p-value. Using the table E, the corresponding area of Z equals to 1.89 is 0.9706. So we minus the 0.9706 with 1 and we got 0.0294. Since this is a two-tailed test, the area of 0.0294 must be double to get the p-value. So bear in mind, we need to multiply this by 2 and we get 0.0588. Next, step 4, we make the decision. The null hypothesis is not rejected as the p-value 0.0588 is bigger than 0.05. We can see it in this normal distribution curve. Okay. Finally, step 5, we summarize the results. We can simply say that there is not enough evidence to reject the claim that the average wind speed is 8 miles per hour. That's all from me. Thank you for your attention. If anyone got any question, can ask me now.
Oke, saya ada satu soalan. Since you are presenting about the p-value just now, can you explain what is the meaning of the p-value?
Good question. So the p-value is actually a short form of probability value. It is the probability of getting the sample statistic, such as a mean, when the null hypothesis is true. In other words, the p-value is the actual area under the standard normal distribution curve, representing the probability of a particular sample statistic occurring if the null hypothesis is true. Thank you.
Alright, thank you for your explanation. Halo semua, nama saya FERRAL WABSTER FILIX dan tajuk topik yang saya akan bentangkan adalah hypothesis testing. Dan contoh soalan dia adalah the average IQ for the adult population is 100 with a standard deviation of 15. A researcher believes this value has changed. The researcher decided to test the IQ of 75 random adults. The average IQ of the sample is 105. Is there enough evidence to suggest the average IQ has changed? Okay, untuk solution dia, first kita kena state dulu dia punya null and alternative hypothesis. Dalam soalan, dia ada cakap the average IQ for the adult population is 100. Jadi, kita punya null hypothesis adalah 100. Dan dalam soalan juga dia ada cakap a researcher believe this value has changed. maknanya the average IQ for the adult population ni dia sudah berubah dan bukan lagi 100. Dan maknanya kita punya alternative hypothesis ni dia adalah tidak sama dengan 100. Okay. Solution yang kedua adalah kita perlu cari dia punya level of significance dan critical value menggunakan z-table. Okay. Level of significance yang kita guna adalah 0.05 dan ini merupakan two tail test, jadi dia ada dua tail, satu dengan dua. First tail ni dia adalah 0.025 dan second tail 0.025 juga, sebab kita punya level of significance adalah 0.05. Dan area di sini nih, dan first tail ni dia ni merupakan rejection region, two tail ni dia merupakan rejection region, di mana area ni dia adalah kita punya null hypothesis. Okay, dan selepas kita dapat level of significance dia, kita mesti cari dia punya critical value menggunakan z-table. Jadi kita guna 0.025 ni dan kita boleh dapat dia punya critical value adalah 1.96. Okay, selepas tu next solution dia adalah kita kena cari dia punya test statistik. Okay, kita kasih masuk ya nilai dalam formula, kita dapat 2.89. Jadi bila kita tengok kita punya graf sini, 2.89 ni dia berada dalam rejection region. Jadi maknanya kita boleh reject kita punya null hypothesis dan accept alternative hypothesis. Jadi solution yang seterusnya kita kena buat conclusion lah. Nah, kita punya conclusion adalah there is enough evidence to suggest the average IQ has changed because we can accept the alternative hypothesis that the average has changed, which is not equal to 100. Okay, itu saja saya punya pembentangan. Kalau ada apa-apa soalan boleh tanya.
Hi FERRAL, can I ask you, kenapa kamu pilih 0.05 sebagai level of significance?
Okey, kenapa saya pilih 0.05 sebagai level of significance? Okey, dalam soalan dia tiada bagi dia punya level of significance. Selalunya soalan dia ada bagi level of significance, tapi yang ini dia tiada bagi. Jadi kita perlu pilih sendiri dia punya level significance, dan saya pilih level of significance yang selalu kena guna ataupun most common level of significance. Sepatutnya kita kena guna level of significance yang kena bagi dalam soalan, tapi yang ini tiada, jadi kita perlu pilih sendirilah.
Hello, my name is Muhammad HAFSAM bin LAMIN. Today I will talk about hypothesis testing. What is hypothesis testing? Hypothesis testing is a type of statistical interference that analyzes sample data to derive inferences about population parameter or probability distribution. First, an educated guess is formed regarding the parameter or distribution. This assumption is known as null hypothesis and is symbolized by symbol H0. Then the alternative hypothesis denoted of H1 or HA is defined, which the inverse of what is taught in the null hypothesis. The hypothesis testing technique entails using sample data to evaluate whether H0 can be rejected or not. If the null hypothesis is rejected, the statistical conclusion is that alternative hypothesis HA is correct. Okay, this is an example problem solving for hypothesis testing. A principal at a certain school claimed that the students in his school are above average intelligent. A random sample of 30 student IQ score have a mean score of 112.5. Is there sufficient evidence to support the principal claim? The mean population IQ is...
Wow, very nice presentation, HAFSAM. May I ask, what is the use of hypothesis testing in our real life? I mean, how can our life related to this hypothesis testing?
In real life, we can use hypothesis testing in investing span. Hypothesis tests are often used in business to determine whether or not some new investing campaign, marketing technique, etc. cause increased sale. For example, suppose a company believes that spending more money on digital investing lead to increased sale. To test this, the company may increase money spent on digital investing during 2 months period and collect data to see if overall data or sales have increased. They may perform a hypothesis testing using following hypothesis. HO, mean after equal to mean before. The mean sales is same before and after spending more or investing. HA or H1 is mean after is more than mean before. The mean sales increase after spending more on investing. If the p-value of the test is less than some significant level, for example is 0.05, then the company can reject the null hypothesis and conclude that increased digital investing lead to increased sale.